Well, a very good evening, everybody, and it is a beautiful one here. This is Patricia and David, Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH 286, and it is a pretty calm night. Mind you, that might upset a few of the people that were a bit late leaving, because it is fairly light out there, but it looks like the ones that put up with the grim weather on Thursday and got away might be going into some decent weather, but we'll talk to them in a few minutes. What have we got here at the moment? We've got 18 degrees, so that's a little bit better than what we've had over the last, yesterday and the day before. Nice steady 1027 on the bar. Quite high humidity for us, 83%. 10 knots of southwest wind, and it's about 60% cloud cover, so a very beautiful evening. So I'm quite happy about that. We had a funny email today. Somebody, I think it was Sunrise, wanted a bit of news. Gosh, they've only been away a couple of days. As you probably know, you old timers, I used to give news, but then somebody got really upset about my slant on the news, so we decided to scrap it again. But I thought, well, we'll start it again a little bit, and I'll probably come on a little bit earlier than the 5:15. And just give you a bit of an update on what's going on around the world. We've sort of got sick of watching Al Jazeera in the morning, because all they've got on at the moment is the Israelis bombing the West Bank and the Sudanese all fighting with each other, and that's been going on for quite some time now. So I'm going to forget about that part of the world. And I know we've got a few Americans out there, but so I thought I'd give you a bit of news from America first and then New Zealand. It is getting more difficult to cross the border from Mexico to the USA. You will recall that President Trump in his time put on some new requirements, but Mr. Biden is actually adding more teeth to them. 24,000 Border Patrol agents and officers are now enforcing the new rules, because the ones that were put in place for COVID finished today. So they're now going into a sort of a market view of what they used to have, and even the Mexicans are helping by stopping people coming into their southern borders. So that's all quite interesting coming from the US. Elon Musk has appointed Linda Yaccarino from NBC Universal, head of advertising she was, to be the new CEO of Twitter. If that's of any interest, we're not Twitter users, so there's not much of interest to us, but he did say he was going to step down. And he has. Very hard to know what's going on in the Ukraine. The Ukraine reckons it's pushed Russia back about 2 kilometres from Bakhmut, but the Russians maintain that that's not quite true. So it is a little bit difficult to know what's going on there, but the Ukrainians are making good use of new missiles given to them by Britain. And pasta. Now, here's something that's of interest, especially to you Italians out there. Pasta prices are soaring in Italy, along with a lot of other things I might add, but the wheat price has dropped, so it's a little bit mysterious as to why the pasta prices have risen, and I think that it's because all you folk have loaded up with pasta before you left, like we did when we went away for our 4 months over summer, and maybe they've just seen that as an absolute boost of people wanting pasta and put the prices up. There you go. California, we always love news from California, the land of nuts, fruits and flakes, and they can always be expected to come up with some really weird news, which sometimes the rest of the world follows, so it's worthwhile keeping a look on what they're doing. But the Supreme Court has in fact backed the Californian law that gives pigs, I kid you not, it gives pigs more space. So this is, of course, going to increase the price of pork and bacon. So I hope it doesn't spread to other parts of the world. So back here in New Zealand, NASA has launched a super big pressure, it's called a super pressure balloon. They've launched it from Wanaka Airport. It's the second one in a series. The first one is in its 4th circumnavigation of the globe. It's about 33 kilometres above the ocean. And it is, they're sort of a special scientific balloon. They keep their size, which is absolutely huge when it gets up to 33 kilometres, regardless of whether it's daylight or sunshine or dark. But anyway, they float around for about 100 days, all good scientific stuff. our controlled airspace, I didn't know this, it rises to 18.3 kilometres above us, which is somewhat less than the 200 nautical miles, should I say, of space we have around our land out in the ocean. What about, well, we've got a budget this week, so it's election year, so that's likely to be a bit of a giveaway to non-thinking voters. I'll tell you more about that when it happens on Thursday. And I got a chuckle because we have just bought a new barbecue for the boat. We searched everywhere for one last year, and there was none in the country, so David had to do all sorts of renovations on our old one, and so it was either really hot or nothing. But anyway, Bunnings have had to pull a TV ad because it showed undersized snapper on the beach. They had a beach barbecue that they were advertising, so I don't know how they managed to work out that the snapper were undersized. Maybe they looked at the size of the barbecue that they were advertising and judged it from there, but they had to pull the ad. So there you go. You really can't get away with anything, can you? Bit of sport. The Black Ferns, the Sevens, have been crowned World Series champions in Toulouse. They haven't actually finished the tournament in France, but they're so far ahead that no one can actually beat them. They beat Poland yesterday 50-0 and the USA 31-12. So there you have it. Okay, that's a bit of news. I'm not sure that you're any better off for knowing that, but there you go. You're not too isolated out there. Okay, let's get on to the serious stuff and see how everyone's going. Probably by now, those tumultuous days, the trip that you had if you left Thursday is but a distant memory. So it looks pretty decent conditions, so we'll be interested to see what they are, in fact. So I'm going to start with the wind and sea report from Laura Dawn. Laura Dawn, Gulf Harbour.
This is Laura Dawn. Can you hear me clearly?
I can certainly hear you. It's a very good copy, but go ahead.
Okay, today's been a really good day. Nice gentle swells coming from behind. We've had some variable wind patches, but at the moment it's about 12 to 15 knots. The wind direction is about 150 degrees. And we put our code 0 out today. They're busy bringing it in now. So that was lovely to just have that extra capacity. Our longitude and latitude is 29 degrees, 51 minutes south, and 177 degrees, 50 minutes east.
Gosh, got all that. And interestingly, GFS has now totally agreed with you. 2951 17750, and they have 15 knots from the southeast, 150 in fact, and code 0. Isn't that nice? I can't remember. We actually took our asymmetric Jennifer off because we really got to use it. So how nice to be able to use that, and gentle swells. So yeah, it looks pretty decent for you. So that must be lovely. Yeah, it's interesting. David was looking at your reports and looking at the models, and years ago when we were cruising, GFS was a bit of a pain because they used to blow up sort of little bits of the ocean that maybe had a little bit of a low pressure, and then all of a sudden they'd draw in a low, and you'd get a bit worried. But now they're much more accurate. But they were under reporting what you got on those first couple of days, but now that's spot on. So it must be lovely. What colour is your code 0? Over.
White and green light, just that.
White. Okay. All right. Thanks very much for that report. Always good to know. One of the leading boats there, so those that are coming behind will have a good feel about the evening. Okay, let's go now. Thank you very much, Laura Dawn, to Cabana. Cabana.
Yes, good evening, Gulf Harbour Radio. How do you copy me this evening?
Oh, very good, George. And I bet your initial day is a long, distant memory now, and you're enjoying some decent sailing. Over.
Yes, absolutely. It's my birthday today. Thank you very much, everyone. 65, and what better place to be?
Yep, I don't know. My birthday's at the end of the season, and I used to hate it if we actually took off and went on my birthday. But yep, it's when you have a nice conditions like today, that you couldn't have it better. So many happy returns, and go ahead with the report.
Yes, roger that. The position is 30 degrees 02 south by 178 degrees 00 east, and our positions correspond totally with Laura Dawn. And I'm glad to hear they had their code 0 out because I couldn't work out why they were going past us today. But I've got ready to put my asymmetric up tomorrow, so tomorrow's another day. Over.
I know, if you can't see boats, you don't worry about it, do you? But when you see a bit of a challenge like that, it's good to rise to the challenge. So, all right, so pretty similar to Laura Dawn because you're very close to them. So, yep, enjoy the evening. And I presume all is well on board, or you would have said otherwise. Yeah, just a suggestion. I was looking at your picture on the AIS and I couldn't work out where your life raft was. But you might like to think of an inside valise life raft, over.
Yeah, roger that. I'm going to get a valise life raft next. With the catamaran has so much room to store that, it doesn't make sense to persevere with that under the transom mount. Over.
Yeah, oh, that's where it was. I have to have a bit better look than. Yeah, well, we've had one. The advantage of them too is that they give you another year before you have to redo it. Well, they used to anyway. Needless to say, the good ship Chameleon has one outside and the valise. David being a well-trained US Army man, he always likes a spare. But I'd had to agree with him because our one at the back of the boat, if you had a catastrophic problem, you probably have all sorts of rigging and mast on top of it anyway, so it was probably good to have one. They're pretty expensive though. Anyway, all right, clear with George on Cabana, and let's go to Not Tied Down, Gulf Harbour Radio. You there, Bill? Nothing heard from Not Tied Down. Let's go on to, where was my next one here? Innocenti.
Gulf Harbour Radio, Innocenti, how copy, Patricia?
Very good copy, Angus. Go ahead.
We are at 3236 south, 17242 east. We are steering 345 true at a speed of 5.5 knots. We've got a very light sort of 7 to 10 southwesterly, a fairly easy swell. The barometric pressure is 1028 and is slightly starting to fall a little. Over.
Okay, David's just having a look at that. I think you heard the Laura Dawn and Cabana. They've got a bit more wind, and you will be going into that by the look of it. But anyway, 3-2. That's if we all believe GFS. It seems to be pretty good tonight. 3236, 17242 for Innocenti, and 345 true at 5.5 knots. And the wind is pretty light, 7 to 10 from the south-southwest, 1028, and maybe just dropping a little bit, and a nice easy swell. It's just lovely that confused seas just flattened out so quickly, so that's good. Sounds like all is well on board, and you're enjoying it, over.
Here we are. Thank you very much. Has David done any weather at the moment, over?
What are you going to do? Are you going to have any weather for him at the moment, or?
I have some weather,
Yeah, he's just having a look. Just stand by one, or do you want to cover it all together? Anyway, I'm just going to have a look at where you are on marine traffic. I was just looking at, whilst he's looking at that, Balance, who cannot get on the radio because it's not working. Balance is at 3412 and 17610, so they're a bit behind you. Innocenti, David wants to repeat, is 3236 and 17242. But yes, they've got the very light, if you believe the GFS, it's updated now, and it's southwest as well. So they're a little bit behind you. So where does it sort of? I'm just going to see where because he's looking at something different from me, and it doesn't actually go stronger until you're up a little bit. Yes, it's about 3-1 before it starts picking up to that 15 knots. So, but I'll see what he says. Otherwise, I'll get growled at.
Well, I wouldn't growl, not at all. Anyhow, your weather for the next few days, and all of you that are in that neck of the woods, are looking very, very good. The high is looking at, well, we'll jump tomorrow. We'll look at Monday, and the high pressure area in the Tasman is roughly directly between the North Island and Australia. Fairly light in terms of the barometric pressure, probably about 1029, almost 1030. So starting to build a little bit. And it's a very, very large in area, anticyclone. And the winds are going to be very, very light up about where you are. And I would say maybe about 10 knots really coming out of at that time. In other words, Monday about lunchtime, almost southerly. And like I say, about 10 knots southerly. And further north, for those boats that are further north than you are, the winds do pick up. And in fact, if anybody was much further north, you'd be looking at 26 to 30 knots up toward the Fiji area. So that shows how the winds do pick up on the fringes of these large anticyclones. And the only other thing to mention is that as the days roll on, we are going to see a little bit of a polar dip that's going to take place in the Wednesday time frame. Wednesday's what, the 17th, I think it is. And that polar dip is going to be just to the east of Brisbane, really. And that is going to develop into a depression, a subtropical depression. And we've been talking about this depression now for quite a while. So by the Thursday time frame, it well and truly looks like it's going to form quite vigorously. The center of it is going to be just to the west of New Caledonia. However, on Rumline, as an example, between New Zealand and Fiji, you'll be looking at winds that are going to start to back. So they'll be easterlies and starting to go east, northeast. And up around 22, roughly 22 south on the Rumline to Fiji. 26, 28, 30 knots of gusts. So it definitely is picking up. Now, on Friday, that is when it really does wrap up. And all the models seem to be in agreement regarding that. We're looking at the central pressure of this depression to be about 994, roughly. And isobars are fairly tight, so we're looking at quite a bit of wind on the perimeter of this low that's doing its job to make things a little bit miserable out there. You're looking at 32, 35 knots, and they are going to be, again, on Rumline between, say, New Zealand and Fiji, 32 knots northeast. So that is why we were talking about those folks that may want to look at ducking into Minerva Reef to allow this particular depression to pass by. It's going to move fairly rapidly, I would say. So if you do decide to go into Minerva, you will have some strong winds for a couple of days, but then it will ease quite quickly as this depression moves. Actually, it's moving south-southeast. In fact, by late Friday, it's going to be east-northeast of North Cape, and the barometric pressure is going to be, I'd say about 980. It's really wrapped up. Quite a bit of wind there. So once that goes through and you are at Minerva, the winds behind it then are going to be more or less southwesterly quadrant. And that low is being pushed by the next high that's moving into the Tasman, and that's giving it a big shove to the east, which is good. So that's the story on that. So we'll have to see how things develop over the next few days. But between now and the Thursday time frame, you should have some pretty decent sailing, depending upon where you're going. Now, if you're going to New Caledonia, as an example, on the Thursday time frame, unfortunately, the winds are going to be looking more northerly quadrant, so not going to be all that pleasant if that is your destination. And we're looking at gusts of 30 knots or so, and that's on Thursday this coming up week. So again, it depends on where you are at that point in time. Those of you that are east of that, the winds will be much less on that time. So Thursday at about lunch, if you're near, say, the Minerva Reef area, you'll be looking at northeast winds at, I would say, gusting up to 28, 29 knots, like that. Nothing horrendous at that point, but a good place to be to wait this thing out. And we'll have to see exactly what the track is going to be, because it has been changing. The models have been shifting that track for the last day or so, so we'll have to see what happens then. But between now and then, boy, enjoy the sailing. It really does look pretty decent. Yeah, that's the ticket here, and I give it back to the chief.
Okay, well, that sounds pretty good for Innocenti and the others that are around there. Was there anything else from Innocenti, Angus?
Go again, Patricia, I missed that.
I just wondered if that answered your question, over.
Thank you, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay, and while I've got the microphone here before I go on to Scoots and then Sunrise, Vicky, well, first of all, the important thing, happy birthday, George, from all the rally boats. That's good. And also for Laura Dawn, if you could come back at the end, I'll call you in to see if you're happy with your Iridium Go now. So let's go on to Scoots.
Harbour Radio, Scoots, copy.
Oh, good copy, Daryl. Go ahead, and good evening to you both.
Good evening, Patricia. We are at 33 degrees 47 minutes south, 177 degrees 12 minutes east. We have a 12 knot southerly. We are motoring at a course of 040 true at a speed of 6.5. We're targeting Minerva ETA Wednesday, and unfortunately, no fish aboard. Over.
David did a bit of a chuckle on that one. Yeah, it doesn't. I haven't heard any reports of fish this year. And funnily, talking about fish, Somerset. Those of you who were on rallies last year would know the Somerset family. They're in northwest Australia at the moment, up near Port Hedland, and they were good fisher people. So they always seem to have something interesting to report. All right, so Scoots is a little bit behind those first boats that we had with 12 knots of southerly. I suspect it's going to edge up just a little bit, which would be nice, wouldn't it? 3347 17712 with the engine on. It's good for charging, I suppose. 6.5 knots on a course of 040, and a Wednesday at Minerva. Here's David.
Well, that sounds pretty good. And looking at the Wednesday, at Minerva Reef, we're looking at about maybe 16 to 18 knots, gusting up around that area. Wind direction looks like east southeast, so it should be a great sail right up to that point, and you should enjoy it. So that's good. You're making a pretty good time, and we'll see what happens in the Wednesday time frame regarding that polar dip and that low that's forming to the west. So, good sailing, and I'll pass it back to the chief.
Yep, I hope Carol's got a good sea legs now. Has she, over?
That's all right, John. Thanks for your comments, and
we've got good sea legs.
Well, sounds like she's sounds pretty chipper, so that's good. And I keep meaning to remind people, for those of you that did suffer the Thursday effort, and you are into the various medications for seasickness, probably by now you're experiencing the after effects of seasick medication, which is constipation. So get into the old kiwi fruit. That's really the best thing for constipation. It is pleasant to eat and it does the job. Okay, let's go on to Sunrise, Gulf Harbour. Nothing heard. Let's try again for Not Tied Down. Is anybody there? No, they must be all catching fish or something. I've got various people that we're going to call in. Seeker and, Which Way probably hasn't got on top of the radio programming yet, but they are at 3116179. We've got quite a bit of easting in there. Probably with the 15 knots of south-southeast. They're doing 7.4 on a course of 034. Okay, is there anybody else wanting to check in? Please call now.
Good evening, Patricia. This is Mintaka. How are you? Copy, over.
Oh, good, thank you. I was wondering where you were, and you are making great progress. Go ahead, over.
We're lat long 29.41, 17728 east. We've got 15 to 18 knots on the southeast and 1 to 1.5 minute swell. We're tracking on a course of 30 true, and we're flying also our zero and staysail and making 8.5 to 10 knots. A beautiful bluebird day as we head to Minerva Reef.
Yeah, I've been watching Mintaka's progress. You're certainly really at the head of the bunch there. So 2941 south, 17728 east, 15 to 18 southeast, 1.5 metres swell, and you're on a course of 030 true with the code 0, 8.5 to 10 knots, and a lovely blue sky day. Oh, that sounds really lovely out there, over.
Yeah, an absolutely magnificent day. Our speed has somewhat contributed to our Olympic and America's Cup yachtman Chris Dixon sailing with us, over.
Well, you wouldn't be able to slouch, would you, with Chris Dixon on board? He'd not like us. We're sort of the set and forget type of people with our sails, but boy, you wouldn't get away with that, would you, over?
No, we're all happy here, and we had a wonderful day.
Oh, well, no wonder there's some good speeds coming from Mintaka. All right, well, have a lot of fun and learn a lot, I'm sure, from having him on board. So good evening to the crew there. Okay, clear with Mintaka. We've got some real speedy folk out there, haven't we? Is there anybody else wanting to call in? It would be good to hear from you. Getting some of the conditions a bit further south. Is there anybody else?
Laura Dawn checking in, Patricia.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And did you get the message from Vicky? She was asking about your Iridium Go, over.
We've been working with it. The problem is that the first wind Yes, they changed our password. We still can't download. It's not working for us.
Oh, okay. So maybe I'm not sure if Vicky's got a line there, but it's a changed password. God, don't you love it when that sort of thing happens? So, all right, thank you for that. So you still haven't got it working. So we'll see what she comes up with tomorrow night. All right. Well, you've got the radio, so that's good. Over.
Yeah, and could you just tell Vicky we went with 123 as they suggested. We got one download of 1 kilobyte of AIS data, and it will download nothing further. So that's our position at this time. Thank you.
And she'll be able to hear that 1 kilobyte download with the 123, and then nothing more. So, all right. Well, we'll see what they come up with next. Thanks for responding to her. She's on the ball, that lady. Okay, anybody else wanting to... Did you have something to say, David, or you finished what you had to say about the weather? Nothing much that's changed. Yeah, looking good for a few days, and we won't talk about that system that's coming until we have to. But, yeah, make the most of the beautiful conditions at the moment. Anybody else? No, nothing heard, so we'll leave you in peace. In fact, the frequency is yours if you want it. I am going to be going to 8297 just to check if anybody wants me there, and otherwise we will be back again tomorrow at 5:15. Have a good night. Sounds absolutely beautiful out there. Cheers, everybody. And I'm going to turn off streaming now. Oh, she's got that message. That's good. So good night all there. I don't suppose you need to hear me on